Michael!
Jack!
I'm hardwired. I'm hardwired today.
I hope
So unless the internet goes down in the entire building, we should be good to live and learn. Move to an island, they said. The internet will be fine, they said.
Jack, whoever watched the show last week missed you badly.
Not last week. If you missed the show, I dropped it was 5 minutes, missed 20, back for the last 5. So total mess. But hey, welcome to the end of November, the end of the month. I assume if you're in the sales world, you are cranking and doing your thing. So I want to make sure the time that we spend is worthwhile. And so appreciate your time and energy. And today's topic, I think, is just so critical to where we are going, really as a country and as a workforce, and how manage from home and how culture. How do you share, make your culture with this new kind of manage from home, work from home setup, right, Mike? And so before we jump into that, some logistics. You want to introduce people? Want to tell people who you are, the futurist?
I'm Coach Mike, and the future is work from home. And so if you're going to work from home, you're going to need managers from home. And so we're doing everything we can to help organizations like yours manage properly in a virtual environment to get the results that you need without the overhead of a building and all the other risks and liabilities that go along with that. And we think we got a way to do that.
Amen. Amen. And that is this new manage from home. No one's talking about it, right? MFH, how do you manage from home? And so that's really the core of what we're talking about. And so before we jump into that, I want to also thank our sponsor, i.help. If you're unaware, i.help aggregates everything you do online into one place. And so with the new work from home, manage from home world, there's all these different links. We all know this, right? Whatever our web conferencing and your online scheduling and all your social media stuff and websites and calls and emails. And some of you, if you're running your business online, the ability to take payments, literally i.help will aggregate all of that in one spot. So super thankful for i.help for sponsoring the show. Go out, get your i.help account. Amazing, amazing, amazing platform, $5 a month. And so all these things aggregated in one spot. It is the future of work from home and manage from home. Yes, yes, yes. So before we start, Thanksgiving go okay, Mike? Everything good? You get in and out of the holiday? No injuries?
Everything was great. Had to break it up a little bit. Breakfast with my oldest daughter, dinner with my son, and then my middle daughter's coming into town this week. So actually a week of Thanksgiving, and so much to be thankful for.
There you go. Awesome. I had a great Thanksgiving until I went to the Ravens-Jaguars game and watched them lose again, third time on the last 10 seconds of the game. So super frustrating, but got great seats, sat right in the first row, felt like it was on the field. So good and bad up to the last 2 minutes of the game. Again,
you know what's crazy, Jack, is that reminded me. Do you remember the Bills where they went to Super Bowl 3 or 4 years in a row?
4 years.
They were the best team in the AFC.
0 for 4
for 4 years, right? But they were the best team in the AFC. Nobody had any doubt about it. Well, the year before that, I went to the Dolphins to see the Dolphins play the Bills, and the Bills are a laydown. The Bills were 0-5. The Dolphins had beat them 8 years in a row, and we were doing okay. And then we had a punt returner named Scott Schwades. I'll never forget Scott Schwades. He never fumbled the ball in high school, never fumbled the ball in college. Third year as a pro, never fumbled the ball. Fumbled the ball 3 times on punts against the Bills that day. Bills got 2 of them. Bills beat the Dolphins, and that was the turning point. The Dolphins were no longer the dominant team. That was it. That was where the paths crossed in the universe of the NFL, and the Dolphins went woo, and the Bills went woo, and I felt like I was there for that. It was so sad.
Look, great segue, because this is what happened, right? The workforce was going one way. COVID strikes, right?
Boom!
reshapes everything we're doing. Hence why this manage from home is so important, because that's exactly what happened, right? Everybody was going along fine. COVID shows up out of nowhere. It's not like a pandemic thing. Some of you studied, in the history books, you're like, that'll never happen again. And here we are, how everything literally in the work world is totally different, including the culture piece. So before we jump into the manage from home culture piece, literally, if you study business success or leaders or the elite companies, they all talk about this issue of culture and how the culture of the company makes it. Apple, Land Rover, you name it, the best companies, their culture, precedes, overwhelms anything product they have, right? This thing of, culture as a company's single most powerful advantage, right? This is Forbes from just last year. And just talking about a company's culture is so, so, so important. And it's just a foundation of how companies have prolonged success, right?
I was thinking about one of the earliest successes in culture. They call it quality. It was total quality management, but it really was the culture of Harley Davidson became quality. And before their CEO did that, literally people put cardboard under the Harley Davidsons in the showroom because they were going to leak in the showroom. Brand new Harley Davidsons leaked in the showroom. And so they introduced all these different programs and quality and improvement and reduce, screw ups and waste. But it was really, it was inherent in the culture. The culture is what made Harley Davidson become, because Harley Davidson was already a great brand. It just happened to be a crappy motorcycle. And so they decided to let's make the and now, like, it's back then Harley Davidson was a big brand, but still motorcycle people rode Harley Davidsons. Now it's everybody rides a Harley. You gotta have a Harley. Hey, get a Harley. It's part of being. And Harleys are known as one of the highest quality vehicles out there because of the culture that was created. Culture is what tells everybody what's important today.
Oh yeah, and a lot of people, like in the software tech world that we've both been in for a long time, like there's whether it's an iPhone or a Droid or this laptop or that laptop or this desktop or this desktop or this tablet and this tablet, the technology almost is the same. You know what I mean? Like the foundational stuff is the same, and what makes a certain product brand so much better, or people loyal to it, or the customer service associated with it, right? It's like Zappos created such an amazing brand just with the culture it created around customer service. You'd never say that. You'd be like, we're going to sell shoes and we're going to be worth a ton of money because we're going to customer service the crap out of our clients. And so that part is the big advantage. In the old school business world, it was not easy, but easier when you had buildings, in-person meetings, team meetings, events, breakfast, lunch, dinner. You could do a lot of things when folks are gathered. And then again, with COVID, work from home. Now folks are scattered in a much harder way now to aggregate them, share culture, talk about culture, build culture, modify culture. God forbid, if you're trying to, you're on here, we got to fit, like you just mentioned with Harley, like how does all that happen right now in the manage from home world, right?
Well, and we got to empower people. I mean, everybody wants to be empowered to almost everyone wants to be more empowered in their job and their role and in their own success. And it's the culture that provides room for empowerment. Because if you don't have a culture that basically drives how you work and behave, well, then I can't really empower you to go off on your own and do great work, because you're going to need to always come back and check in because you won't have that North Star, which is the strength of a good culture.
Right. What do we do? Right. What do we represent? Because again, the Zappos customer service could be very different than Microsoft's, you know what I mean? And you'll operate accordingly. And so again, this issue of the culture is such a huge thing. It can be the most powerful thing, and is the most powerful thing in many companies that drive its success, or actually its failure or languishing as well, right? And so then if I think that's not rocket science, that's not anything new. It's like we're not breaking ground with this theory, right? But now here's where it starts to get a little different and a little dicey. Hey, we're going to build share. Now you got a new employee share culture, and here's how we have to do it now, right? Now we're like, I love it. I don't want to go back in the office. I have control of my own schedule. I can do whatever I want. It's so awesome. And now I'm trying to build culture this way, right? On a screen, no matter how many of these meetings you try to have, Like, how do you share, build, impart culture to people that are on the headset, watching the screen, and also petting their cat simultaneously?
Yeah, it's not easy. And even if you had a really strong brick and mortar, or at the office culture was something your company or organization was known for, if you're going to work from home or moving towards it, or you're not, you went to work from home during COVID and you're not really coming back immediately or ever. Some companies took the COVID as an opportunity to double down on virtual, and they're not coming back. And so in those organizations, the culture was there, right? They've got a good culture, but now how do we maintain and nurture it in a virtual environment? Right? There's no posters in the workroom. There's no cafeteria. There's no coffee. There's no water cooler. There's no, all these things that.
It reminds me of when you brought up football, when Randy Moss joined the Patriots. You know what I mean? Randy Moss was an outlier, crazy, rebellious spirit, right? And they're like, how is he ever going to fit with Bill Belichick? And the locker room, talk about the locker room, had him mold and fit, right? The locker room is such a big presence. And again, the infrastructure and the culture of the Patriots, who I do not like, by the way, but you're just a great example. Randy Moss, outlier, when he got to the Patriots, conformed because the culture, all the things that got into it, affected him, right? And put him in a box of what they found acceptable, right? And that's in the old school brick and mortar world, lot easier, right?
The culture is built from reinforcement. Right? If you're consistent in your message about what you expect, what you want to see, the vision for the future, where are we going? If that's consistently communicated, then your culture is going to get stronger through that consistency. And so in that consistency, it's going to get, now how do we do that virtually? That's where the challenge comes in.
Right.
And the hub, the centerpiece of culture now in a virtual environment is the team leader, the manager, right?
Yes.
That manager become whatever culture is happening corporately at the highest levels, it's coming down, and whether it's the bottleneck or the flow through, it's the manager, right?
Right. I think there's two big takeaways today. That's the first one, right? That in the old days, it was the building and what your HR group was doing, and the events, and how you did your daily schedule, and when did people arrive, and what dress code, right? Where people dress, like, it all created a certain culture. Right. And now, literally, with manage from home and correlated to the work from home, it is the person. It is the manager who you interact with the most creates the culture. It doesn't matter if the HR group, the CEO, everyone else was a certain way. If your manager is a certain way, that becomes the culture for you, right? Because you're in this setting, right? You're just in this box. And if the manager is on the other side a certain way, that is the culture, right? The manager becomes the culture, right?
It's funny. In my mind, I'm thinking like Mick culture. It's culture in a box. We got culture in a box now. And how do you do that? Well, it's management's management. Good management was great 20 years ago. The same skills, right? The same necessary interactions from a manager they're the same types in a virtual environment, but they're not the same. I can't just walk into your office. I can't just drop by. I've got to communicate with you differently. And in those communications, I have to be much more intentional and deliberate as the manager about incorporating culture and vision and values in 99.5% of all of my communications. Right? Every once in a while, you can talk about Thanksgiving, maybe without a little culture built in, but outside of that, it's got to be. You just got to put that, just the cherry on the top of every conversation is culture.
What? And I think the through thread has to be the same. Even if you're talking about Thanksgiving, all of a sudden you tell an offhanded joke or talk about something you're going to do that doesn't fit with the like, it all goes south. And so that's the second thing. The first one is the manager becomes the culture of the company, whoever's interacting almost all the time now on these video conferences, right? And in the old days, it's a quick sidebar. In the old days, a brick and mortar, if the person didn't fit the culture, the company would spit them out. They'd be like, well, Bob, Sally, they don't fit. Eventually, the culture would weed them out and they go. But now that doesn't happen a lot because not a lot of people are sitting on all the things and it becomes gospel, right, on their video calls. And then the second one, as you mentioned, the culture piece has to be in every interaction. Like every interaction, right? That is, I was just writing about from team meetings to spiffs to bonuses, HR meetings, disciplinary meetings, one-on-ones, good times, bad times, Slack, email, voicemails. In every communication, you are representing the culture of the company. Way more importantly, now, because that's all the person has on the other end. We're all, and now these little boxes, right? Look, here we go. We're in these boxes, and all we have is what people tell me. That's it.
Right.
And if the communications are not aligned, like it's all one way, and then all of a sudden, again, somebody cracks the wrong joke, the wrong thing is said. We're really, really nice, but when the company's not doing well, then we get mad at people. We put a spiff in that doesn't match what our corporate culture is. It all goes south really quick.
It's interesting that, and also company values, we put things in place to help us maintain or nurture company values and incorporate them instill them into things we're doing day to day. But I remember when I had this program where I had to do my annual reviews for my people. And one of the things I had to do was align everything they were doing with a company value. Which company value does this align with? And it's pretty sad when you're like, nothing we do aligns with any, like 90% of what we do in sales doesn't align with any of these company values. And like, what am I'm making stuff up.
Right.
And it was interesting that goes, so shame on me for not, as a manager, not reviewing the company values that I'm going to try to align my people with for the year, because that should have been a January question, not trying to fill out the corporate reviews. It should have said, this is what you want us to align with. There's nothing here that what I do aligns with, right? Like we need to fix these company values now. The problems already exist. But when it does come up, we need to adapt. I mean, we need to say, listen, if we're really going to try to build culture, everything we say from the CEO's office, the CHRO's office, and then the manager's office, all of that has to be applicable to what I'm doing today. If you've got some highfalutin, ideas about where we're going, and I can't land the plane in what I'm doing, it doesn't serve its purpose. It doesn't drive my behavior today.
And again, I just want to repeat, so many things in the old school world are valid, right? But all the infrastructure helped make the culture. It's all gone. 90% of it's gone, right? Folks, you see this from up. No one knows. You have shorts on, flip flops. Like the shoe industry must be suffering, right? There's no building. There's no start time. There's no dress code. There's no water cooler talk, right? The way it used to be. And so now it's literally this managed from home is boiled down to really two things. It is the person on the other end of the screen who represents the company, delivers that culture all the time, and probably 2 to 5 times a day, right? That's the thing that's out there. 2 to 5. Woo, quick figure.
Double beaker.
Right. 2 to 5 times a day, they're delivering the culture. It doesn't matter. Like you said, we were talking pre-show. It doesn't matter what the CEO does, what the HR department does. If you don't interact with the CEO or the HR department, it becomes the person. The culture becomes the person. First big takeaway in the new manage from home framework. And then the second one being every interaction, you are delivering culture. Every interaction, that person is delivering the culture, because all the other things that were in the traditional world are gone. There is no building. There's no office. There's no desk type. There's no dress code. There's no water cooler talk. There's not lunch with the people. You're not having coffee. It literally is this. It's the interaction, how it's done, the way it's done, and the message you're sending in every interaction.
It's really interesting, Jack, that we talk, one of our methodologies is burst management. And in burst management, you're supposed to do a burst win. It's like, hey, that was great what you did. And you're supposed to do it in front of everybody and make sure everybody knows that was great behavior. But sometimes we're supposed to burst in and tell them they did great, but not in front of the team. Why? The result was good. It didn't align with the culture. So you did well, but that's not a behavior I want to perpetuate in the team. So I'm going to tell you, great job. And I'm going to tell you, here's how we'll do that differently in the future to align with the culture of our team, therefore the culture of our company. And so if it aligns with the culture and the values, everybody sees, hoorah, we all did great. That was awesome what you did. But if it doesn't align with the culture and the values we're trying to perpetuate, then we want to tell the person they did a great job, but do it one-on-one so that you don't create some, because then you're not nurturing that culture that you're trying to build. You need to protect it as well.
Yeah, and the tie back to the manager being the culture is if the manager does not correct that thing that was done, it doesn't match, it's left undone and it starts to perpetuate, right? It's like, we are all in the sales world, we all know this, like perception's reality, right? And if you start selling and you sell to a certain vertical, that vertical becomes the best vertical ever, right? Yes, even if the rest of the sales team hates that vertical, you're like, that's where I have success. It is the best. And it becomes self-fulfilling of how we do it. And one of the most important jobs of the manager, both delivering the culture and again, in every communication, but also correcting it lovingly, nicely, and go, hey, appreciate that, but that doesn't really align with our long-term goals. Or you may not know that, or I know I've been in the office. Because in the old days with the brick and mortar, sometimes the coworkers would. They'd be at lunch and be like, hey, you know what? We don't really do that here. Hey, we don't really swear. Or we don't really do that thing. Or, whatever it is. Sometimes the coworkers, but now a lot of that's lacking, right? Because we don't have the walk by each other's desk and see each other on the way to the restroom or, this or that. All that's missing. And so if the manager does not both deliver and talk about the culture, and then, as you mentioned, kind of correct in a loving way, it can spiral out of control. And you can see how people lose control of their culture really, really quickly because both it's not delivered well or not corrected very well.
What's really interesting is that watching football on Sundays, when somebody gets a 15-yard personal foul, right? Some teams leave their guy on the field. Some teams, that guy's coming off the field and he's talking to a coach one-on-one before he goes back on the field because that does not align with who we are, right? And so now, and it's interesting, you can name on one hand the 5 coaches that when you see a 15-yarder, they're coming off the field and that they're going to have a one-on-one with the head coach because this is too important. Culture is too important to let it slide or let it go by. And then you see some of the newer coaches in the NFL, like the guy gets the 15-yard and he gives a snarky look at the coach and the coach go, oh, I'm not going to talk to him now. He looks mad. And so Lou Holtz with it. Lou Holtz, little 5'6" Lou Holtz grabbing some 6'5" by the face mask and taking him down to his level going, we don't do that here at Notre Dame. That's not how we do things, son. And so we're not going to grab anybody's face mask at work. However, we are going to do everything we can to nurture and protect the culture. And that comes in communication. So another thing we need to do is as the frontline manager that's managing from home, the team leader, we need to identify what the company values are, right? We need to see those and read those and look at them. And then we need to see what the company mission is, and we need to see the values. And then we need to read the CEO's address through the annual report, but say, hey, where's the company going? What are we trying to accomplish? Now, that's all fodder for me to now translate into what my team does on a daily basis, right? And so that translating is such a critical role for the manager to be effective at building culture over the year. That now I know exactly where the company's going, and I know what good performance from everybody on my team, each one of their roles, how it contributes to the culture that the whole company's trying to build. But now I have the little pieces that I can build. Hey, that was really great what you did. That totally aligns with our vision for penetrating this market. Hey, that was really great what you did because it totally aligns with the company's vision to be more green or more community oriented or to be more. And so, that was awesome what you did because our vision to increase everything on the company by 130%. You're right along. You're averaging right at 133. You're doing great. That's awesome. And so being able to have those conversations quickly and now everything is not just random. You're awesome. It's you're awesome on point and you're awesome as part of the greater company. You're part of the greater cause.
Yeah, I think that's the key is being very intentional, right? The manage from home. I think most managers in the pre-COVID world would be like, yeah, I represent the company culture, especially ones that have been there a long time, right? Hey, I'm indicative, good or bad. I drink the Kool-Aid and represent whatever our company culture is. And I think folks didn't think about it consciously. It was like, yep, all the other HR will take care of that, or the CEO's, state of the business will take care of that, or whatever. And one of the biggest things with the manage from home is people have to be so cognizant that they are delivering the culture in every interaction, again, in every communication. And it has to be top of mind, because I think a lot of people focus on their PowerPoint or their presentation or their notes, or like, this is what I'm going to say today. Here are the topic. Here's the outline. Great. And if they missed the culture piece in how they delivered it, in their tonality, in maybe sometimes it goes south in the Q&A, right? They got their message all buttoned up, but somebody asked a question they didn't like. Somebody said something that, this is a little gray, or this is a little aggressive. And if the person gives in to their, non-culture part of an answer, the whole thing could go south. Everyone goes offline, and now all the people sit at home and are irritated or feel like the company's disingenuine, right, from what they're really trying to represent. And so it's so important for the management from home managers to be cognizant all the time about their communication and what message they're sending subliminally sometimes.
And the other thing is that you always, like you mentioned, the locker room, right? The coaches do the good job of trying to establish culture in the locker room, but then if it's which players are really the influencers, yep. Right? And there's every team has influencers, and if you can get them on get them on board with building culture, building the team, and creating an identity for the team, its own team identity. It needs to align with the company's identity, but you can create a shared identity within the team, and that's even going to be greater, because now it's hey, what are we fighting for? Like, what are we, right? What's our team? What are we fighting for day in and day out? What are we trying to make happen? And so what's the big thing that we're a part of? And it may, in the corporate level, from the CEO's perspective, could be a small thing, right? But as a manager, that's not an option. You can't have your team thinking that we're doing a small thing. Your job is to make sure that you help them realize why it's critical, why it's important, and then bake that into the identity and the intentionality of almost every conversation.
Yeah, the last thing is, as we start to wrap the show, I just want to encourage folks, as you watch this, you have to be intentional. If you're an executive at your company, you have to be intentional about the training piece for your managers. That's really what's been lacking. Again, we talk about this all the time, right? We have everybody, you may have been the best manager ever. You had this kind of management training program, this communication program, and then we went work from home. And so much of that has just fallen away. And we just expected our good or great in-office managers to all of a sudden just be great manage from home managers. We're just like, oh yeah, they'll just figure it out. And so just want to encourage, if you are in a company or you're in the HR group and you see this, you have to find specific training for your people. How can they manage from home? What skill sets, what frameworks, stuff like this, the intentionality of their communication, knowing they are the culture of the company in every interaction. How do they fix things? Can't let anything slide, because if you let it slide and manage from home, it turns into a snowball really quick. And so all those things our folks need training on. That's just the bottom line. And that's really what's been lacking, why so many companies are struggling with this manage from home thing during COVID, is there's been no training. They're just like, people went home. There's a lot of talk about work from home, right? The great resignation and quiet quitting, and have the infrastructure. You need new Wi-Fi and lights and camera, but we've really missed any training at all about how to manage from home.
Yeah, I think one of the great things, Jack, is that if we as managers do a great job of teaching our people what the culture of our team is, and having them and helping them understand it, over time, everybody on the team is going to say, that's who we are, right? And then when they see poor behavior, they're going to say, that's not who we are. And it's going to be a team, and it becomes self-fulfilling. Like you said earlier, right? It becomes self-fulfilling.
Yeah, in the office that happened. And now, if you're a manager, you see that happen virtually on a call, you should love it, right? If you got 10 squares, you see that, right, Mike? If you see somebody correct somebody either on the thing or offline, wow, then you're making hay, sharing your culture in this manage from home world.
And there's more to it. There is more to it around building the culture, because it all weaves together. But I think today's 2 points are really important, Jack. The way you laid them out is that we need to be intentional and we need to align, right? That we, as a frontline manager, it doesn't matter frontline manager. I could be the division head over 75 teams, But I am at that point, I've got however many managers, direct reports, they become my team.
Yep.
And then I inspire them to build identity into their team. And then they inspire, right? It goes, if I can show them, I can model, like, this is how we do it. From me down, there's a culture that identifies us and it aligns with the whole.
Yes.
Right. It's not it's not we're not the rebellion. We're not trying to create a civil war. Right. There's alignment, right, that we are part of the bigger cause, and we leverage that, so that not that to make our people better workers, to make our teams better places to be a part of. People are naturally more productive on better teams. Right. Randy Moss caught more touchdowns when he got to the Patriots. He won more Super Bowls than when he got into a culture that was just it was almost its own thing. Like, this is we're part of. It's not me, and we are part of.
I don't think he got one. I think that was when they 0-17 lost to the Giants. But yeah, I think in the old days, again, somebody would give a speech, right, and the employees would leave, and they would congregate, talk about it on the way back at their desk during lunch. It would meld, and then if something got out of line, people would come to your office, and you'd have little small groups and meeting rooms. And today, same speech, everyone disconnects. Now they're in their living room or their home office or wherever they are, right? And they really are very much in a vacuum, and much more interpersonal assessing what's happening versus in the old days. Again, the infrastructure helping to make the message. And so cannot just be more adamant that, hey, you have to know as a manager that you are the culture and your message is so important. And there is not the other framework, infrastructure, other things that'll help deliver it. It's you 90+% of the time delivering it and backing it up and correcting it and messaging it all the time. And if you're not aware of that, that's why your team is not in a good place, because they're just reading between the lines, and they see the little disconnects and the incongruity, and like they're just incongruity. Is that a word? Right? Incongruence and like what you're saying, and right. It's the one I always think about, and it's like we're positive and happy, and then when something bad happens, everyone gets yelled at, and you're like, well, they don't go together. Right. And so doing it and carrying it out in the hard times, especially virtually, is critical to make sure you save, grow, and keep the culture that you want.
Working from home is great. It requires good management. And good management from home means that the manager is the culture.
Amen. So true. Listen, as we wrap, I just want to thank I.Help again for sponsoring the show. Go get your I.Help account, $5 a month. Have your coffee and get your I.Help account. Thank you so much for sponsoring the show, the great folks at I.Help. Anything else final on this topic, Mike, this kind of manage from home and building a culture, and how with the management from home, work from home dynamic, how folks can do that? Any bow to wrap the topic?
Just do the upfront work. It doesn't come naturally. You got to do the upfront work, understand the culture and driving forces in the organization, and then you need to translate that to drive that down into your team to inspire them to excellence.
Amen. I want to remind everybody listening, train, consciously think about what's happening at a managerial level for your workforce. So much time and energy is old school about our training programs and our people. Your management team is struggling. I promise you, it's the number one thing talked about. If I get calls during the day, 90% of them are about this topic of how we can't get our people. We can't get our metrics right. We can't motivate our culture. We're losing our culture. It's not the same. The metrics are lower. What do we do? And the quick answer is take them back to the office. Get them back in the office, right? Elon Musk style. You just get back. And the problem is your top 20, 30% of the people are going to leave and go places they're allowed to do that. And so the most important thing is, how do you manage from home, MFH well? Amen. Good.
Amen.
That's what we will continue to talk about as we venture into December. Mike, thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day.
Glad to have you for all 30 minutes, Jack.
Hey, there it is. Look, in and out, 35 minutes. We're out of here. See you next Wednesday at noon. Oh, my God. Like, what?